Day 41. So I'm laying down for today's live because I'm exhausted. I have zero energy left. And usually this happens every time I take a road trip out of town. Basically a 3-hour drive to Nanaimo and then a 3-hour drive back and then whatever I do in Nanaimo. So it's like I get basically all my energy that I have. I use it and no nap, nothing, just go. I'm probably trying to plug into every other driver's sacral energy once I can make it on the way back, on top of coffee and whatnot. So I wanted to come on today, talk a little bit, whoa, that just happened. A little bit about inner child healing and explaining what it is, debunking some myths about it. So inner child healing is a tool. It's one of the many, many tools for healing. And some people resonate with it. Other people don't. It doesn't hurt to try it. I resonate with it a lot just because for me it has made sense of a lot of things. So, which I will go into in this video. Now, there are many people who think of inner child healing. They're like in shadow work. They're like, oh, I have to have had a traumatic past. And I know I've mentioned this before in my videos, but I figured I'll say it again. You don't necessarily have to have a traumatic past. Like to do inner child healing. Sorry, okay. Inner child healing, like your inner child is basically your ego, just to kind of make that make sense for you. And inner child healing is a tool to use to heal. And there always is something to heal. And so the reason why I like this tool is because you do go in the past, you go into, when you were a kid and events that have happened in the past surrounding your childhood. And it could be anything. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be traumatic as what we label trauma as. Like, I find the minute someone says trauma, it's like, oh, it has to be abuse, or like a car accident or those kind of events. But trauma is not just that. Trauma is a range of everything. Yet in our minds, we logically put it into a box, as we do with a lot of things. And so yeah, you have trauma. Everybody has trauma from childhood, and it ranges from person to person. But what happens is that what happened in that moment basically is you told a story about yourself in that moment. And so this can be something like a teacher said something to you, or a teacher acted a certain way with you. It could be something like your friends at school, or like bullying, or somebody calling you names. It can be like your parents getting mad at you that one day. Like, you had an amazing, like, your parents were amazing, but that one day they got mad at you and they said something. And in those moments, you conditioned yourself. In those moments, you told yourself a story as a child, because as a child, you did not understand what was happening. Your child mind is not the same. A child mind is not the same as an adult mind. So, as an adult, like, if you see somebody who calls you, I don't know, a bitch or whatever, or an asshole, as an adult, you can... There's different ways to respond to it, obviously, but as an adult, you can make sense of it if the person was having a bad day, or if they were joking. There's just so many ways that we can analyze the situation, as we do as human beings. And so, but as a child, you don't understand. And so in that moment, you programmed yourself. So whether it's someone from your childhood that, called you a name, or a teacher said something to you, or an incident happened, it could be a minor incident, You ran into a pole. Like, I don't know. I'm just throwing out different ideas here. And, you know, you tell yourself this story at that young age, and then that is like programmed, implanted in your subconscious. And so then fast forward to today, however old you are, you'll be noticing either certain repetitive patterns that constantly happen over and over. So whether it's like self-sabotaging patterns to yourself, or it could be external patterns such as like not getting the guy, like there's like, you know, you're always being the one getting dumped, or you're always getting a job that has like a horrible boss. It could also be certain addictive behaviors, which could be with substance or not. So substance pretty self-explanatory, but like non-substance can be like kind of like using something else to escape from. So this can be like, and you know, to not deal with your emotions. So this can look like Netflix, could look like social media. It can also look like food as well, is one of them. There are many things that we sometimes use to satisfy, so that we don't feel what we need to feel, and we would use it to like mask that feeling. And so that's usually what happens. One way how something from the past can like gets implanted, and how it can show up in your life right now. And so that doesn't necessarily mean like, what was I going? Wow, what was I saying? Let's see, I'm tired. I'm really tired. But I really want to have this conversation. I'm trying to maybe plug into generator sacral in the area here. Come on. And so that's one way how that can show up. Another way it shows up is triggers. So triggers, what are they? Triggers is something that happens, you know, either externally or internally, and it causes an emotion, a negative, I would say low emotion, such as anger, frustration, bitterness, disappointment, sadness, all those low emotions caused by a trigger. And that is another way where an old trauma or an old wound from your childhood can be presented to you when you get triggered. And so what's interesting also is that those triggers are you're not self-themes in human design. And so the general not self-theme, anger, disappointment, bitterness, and frustration, the minute that happens, that's a trigger. Where does that trigger stem from? Which wound did it come from? Go check in with your inner child. What happened in the past that is similar or not, and you told yourself a story at that moment. You told yourself a narrative that you are not worthy, for example, and then one day someone says that like what you're doing is a bunch of bullshit, and you get upset. You get frustrated, you get bitter, you get angry, you get disappointed, you get sad. So it always comes from somewhere. And the reason why I love inner child healing so much is because you find the source. You find the spot, the place where it came from. And in my mind, because I am logical and I like making sense of things that don't make sense, I'm like, okay, I found the source. I found like where that wound comes from. And then it just makes sense. It makes sense. It's like, and then you start seeing in which other areas it affects in your life, because sometimes it doesn't just affect one area, it can affect other areas, right? And it is connected also to your not self themes in your human design centers, open and undefined centers. So classic, I've had the lack of self-worth as like, that was a big one. That was a big inner child wound. And that stemmed from when I was like 5-6 years old. And what happened there was I had my grade 1 birthday party. My mom invited my whole class and nobody but one person showed up. And in that moment, I told myself I was not worthy to have friends. But where did that reflect also? I've struggled my life with friendships, like holding on to friends, or I would give too much to friends and they would take advantage of me. But then it also showed up with relationships where I didn't believe I was worthy of love. And so I would meet a guy, it'd be all good, and then they'll slowly start distancing themselves, and then that would trigger me because I'm like, why are they distancing themselves? And then there's a trigger. And then I react to that trigger however I react. So whether that is to get mad at them, to call them out on it, that was in the past. Now I don't do that. Now I sit with the trigger. And so it shows up there. And then it also showed up in where I've had employers that took advantage of me. And I would work extra hard. I would overwork to show them, to prove to them that I'm worthy of an employee. But at the end of the day, I didn't believe I was worthy. So I was just trying to get external validation. And so here is like 3 aspects. And then also it has also shown up in my business, but which I'm kind of trying to shorten this here. But it's shown up basically in all 4 aspects. Okay. In my life, as far as I'm aware of. So relationships, friendships, work, and my business. And if you look at my human design, my heart is open, which there is your self-worth. So feeling unworthy over giving, that is not in alignment. That is a not self-theme of an open heart. And so it's all interconnected. So if you are curious into inner child healing, this is what it's all about. It is going into the past. It is figuring out where it came from so that you can start healing it. You can start making sense of the shit that doesn't make sense. And then the minute you recognize it, that's when the healing actually begins, because recognition is like the number 1. And you start noticing the patterns. You start noticing patterns in all aspects of your life. And then you add on emotional intelligence on top of it. Hello, like cherry on top. Because now, next time there's something that triggers you, either it won't trigger you or it will still trigger you, but you will react differently. You'll take a step back and you'll realize, you're like, wait, this is my trigger. This is like my not self-theme. Okay, let me take a step back instead of projecting it onto someone else. And let me pause and reflect for a minute before reacting, before getting mad, getting angry, bitter, frustrated, disappointed. And so then the triggers aren't as powerful. You start noticing them. You start embodying emotional intelligence, which is like key. And so this is the work I do on myself. Like, this is like inner child healing is my number 1 tool. And because it makes sense, and then I incorporate it with human design, because we are all one. We are all one. We are all interconnected. It's insane and it's amazing. And so this is what I offer as a coach, because I have done this through and through, and I can hold space for you. I can hold that space. I can hold the deep, dark shit that you've gone through, because I've healed, and I can hold space for myself for that shit. And that is what I'm here to do. And so if inner child healing is something you desire to tap into, if this is something that you're like, yeah, I'm done with these repetitive patterns, these repetitive behaviors, I want to be free, and you can reach out to me and we can start the healing process together, because I can show you the steps. I can hold space for you. I can be that person that you speak to, so that who understands the deep dark shit. And I can hold space for all your low emotions. I got you, because I can hold space for all my low emotions. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. Inner child healing is a tool, and it's not the only tool to healing. It's not the only tool that, that exists. It's one tool out of many. There are many tools out there. And it's one of my favorite ones. So that's my 2 cents. This is day 41. Thank you for watching. And now I'm going to eat and probably watch TV because I'm so tired. And also severely allergic to dust mites. See, it's still red. It's been hours. Anyways, I'll post a picture after. It's still red. Good times. Okay.